What's up guys? Today on Robbie's Reviews, I am in the 2019 Shelby GT350R. I just want to thank my friend Zach, who's traded cars with me for the day, and he's trusted me with his baby, and he's allowed me to take it out to drive and review it, get a feel for how it handles, how it performs compared to the likes of the Camaro Z28, the ZL1 1LE, and even the likes of the GT3 RS and the McLaren 600 LT, which I have driven them all. So it'll be really cool to get a chance to compare how those cars feel compared to this one. So right now we're just going to step outside, take a look at the exterior of the GT350R, see how it compares to the regular GT350. Then we'll get a look at the interior, and then we'll take it out on the road and see what it's like to drive. Let's go check it out. All right guys, here she is, the 2019 Shelby GT350R. And this example is finished in shadow black, and it has the full width satin black racing stripes with the red outline. And as you can see, this is a very, very menacing looking car. The Mustang really has always been one of the best looking cars on the road. And when the Shelby GT350 first came out, it was definitely no exception. It added just so much aggression on top of the already sporty, aggressive, and mean looking Mustang with the 5.0 and even the EcoBoost. Just great design cues. And the GT350R adds even more on top of the GT350. So some of the things you get over the base GT350 is a larger and more aggressive front splitter. It says Shelby on the front here. You actually get the full carbon fiber wheels. Now, they're not exposed carbon fiber, but the owner of the car has actually told me that what the coating on the wheel here, on the face of the wheel, is actually the same coating that they put on the outside of the space shuttle. Now, that's pretty cool. You actually have more aggressive side skirts. And like on a lot of cars, McLarens and Ferraris, you have like these rock collectors here. Looks like there's actually a few rocks that have collected in there. But just helps with aero and stuff like that. Coming around back, of course, you have the carbon fiber wheels again. And behind the carbon fiber wheels, you have the large Brembo brakes. You have 4-piston in back and huge 6-piston in front. They're not carbon ceramic, and I don't believe that's an option. However, I don't even think that's necessary with this car. The stopping power is just incredible. And from what Zach's told me, he rarely has to use full braking power, if ever. And around back here, you have that huge rear wing or spoiler that is definitely not on the regular GT350. Has more of a kind of a ducktail spoiler, but this is a large wing here. It actually takes up most of the back of the window here. So really, when you're looking through the rear view mirror, all you're seeing is this wing. Of course, you have the red GT350 badging with the Cobra there. You have the black stripes that continue all the way down the back bumper here. And you have that dual mode quad exhaust, which we'll take a listen to in a little bit. Now, something you may have noticed while we're walking around the GT350R here is that there isn't a badge that says GT350R. It's really just the same fender badge you get on the regular GT350. There's no R badge on the grille. You just have the GT350 with the Cobra there, the snake, Shelby on the front, and on the rear it says GT350. In fact, the only place that you're going to find GT350R in this car is on the numbered plaque here on the dashboard. And there's an R on the backrest here. And actually, for 2019, the R was moved from the headrest down to the backrest here, so it's a nice little touch. And coming back to the plaque here, you can see GT350R, chassis KR670, so 670 is the number, so that's the number in the production line, so it's unit number 670. And of course on the door sills here, you have Ford Performance, nice little touch. And we'll go more into detail in the interior in a little bit, but you probably noticed those amazing heavily bolstered Recaro seats. They're full Alcantara cloth. And this car actually has the interior carbon fiber package, as well as the $3,000 tech package that I'll get more into in a little bit. And one option that this car doesn't have, just because it's black, is the painted black roof option. Because being a black car, obviously already has a black roof. And you have those stripes that continue across, the full width racing stripes, just coming out to the front here. It's really just such an aggressive car. When Zach came down my street this morning, I was really just in awe at how aggressive this car looks. And I've never had one behind me on the road, as there are really not that many of them around here. However, I've seen regular GT350s, and with this front lip here, this huge front splitter, it just adds an extra level of aggression. And you have all the functional holes and vents and everything. So the one thing that the GT350 and the GT350R share is their power plant. So they're both powered by a 5.2 liter naturally aspirated flat plane crank V8 that is called the Voodoo. So unlike the Coyote that is in the 5.0 and some Ford trucks, what is in the Shelby GT350 is the Voodoo V8, and it produces 526 horsepower and 429 pound-feet of torque. Now, something interesting about this engine is, one, it does not feel like an engine out of an American car. When you're driving this car, the way the suspension, steering, and engine, everything just works together in harmony, it just feels like a true driver's car. It feels more Porsche-like than anything. It's really just like a precision tool, not a blunt instrument, kind of like a Hellcat or even the Camaro ZL11LE. While the ZL11LE is a hardcore track car, just like this GT350R, in all honesty, even though this makes over 100 horsepower less and like 200 pound-feet of torque less, it just feels like a more friendly, more approachable car that you can throw around a corner and know you're going to come out on the other end instead of being wrapped around a tree or a pole. So right now we're going to get a look at that 5.2 liter flat plane crank Voodoo V8. And of course, to save weight, there are no hood struts here, just a manual hood prop. And here under the hood of the GT350R, first off, you see that Ford Performance strut bar going across to help with the chassis rigidity. And this is a very stiff car. If you bought this car for comfort, you bought the wrong car. The adjustable suspension, even in comfort, is brutal. And in the track or sport mode, it is on the level of a Viper ACR or a Corvette ZR1. It really is something else. So this car is bone stock, other than the K&N cold air intake that Zach has added. But other than that, it's a completely unmolested stock car. And you can see powered by Ford, 5.2 liter V8. You actually have the plaque straight out of the AMG playbook, hand built with pride, GT350. And that's the individual that built it there. Unlike a lot of vehicles that I've reviewed, you can actually see the entire engine. There's no plastic covers or anything like that. No fake carbon fiber covers. You see the intake manifold there, the strut bar going across, the heads and everything. Just a big 5.2 liter naturally aspirated V8. It's really a refreshing sight. No turbochargers, no superchargers, nothing like that. Just 500 plus horsepower, plenty of torque. It's really a linear power band. This car makes all of its power up to about around 78 to 8,000 RPM. And something pretty funny, kind of similar to the Nissan GTR, it says carbon fiber composite. I guess just Ford wanted to let you know that this is a carbon fiber composite and not just plastic. Other than usual reservoirs and tanks, and you got your fuse box over there and stuff like that, it's a pretty standard engine bay. I mean, you've got your engine, you've got your 6-speed manual transmission, which is definitely one of the most amazing manual transmissions I've ever driven in my life. It's really just a match made in heaven. The weight distribution in this car is fantastic. It's really perfectly balanced. It is, like I was saying before, more Porsche-like. It is not just a blunt instrument. It is really a precision tool. Where the Hellcat would be a mallet or a hammer, the GT350R is more of a scalpel. It's really just for precision track driving, and that's about it. I mean, I don't want to call it a one-trick pony like the Viper ACR. It does have plenty of creature comforts inside. Not the same that you get in the regular GT350 or even the 5.0 Mustang, but for a hardcore street track race car with a license plate, if you will, it is as luxurious as it could possibly be. Now, the roads around here, I mean, like the road that I've been driving on has some twists and turns to it, but it would never really be able to do this car justice. However, in a few weeks, Zach is actually going to be coming out to a track day with me and some of my Viper buddies, and I'm hopefully going to get to go for a ride with him, and I can experience what this car is like on a road course. We're going to be at Homestead Miami Speedway. So right now we're going to close down the hood. All right, so being that it is easily over 100 degrees out right now here in South Florida, we're going to step inside into the GT350R, check out the interior, and get some of that amazing ice-cold AC. So you can see those amazing heavily bolstered Recaro racing seats. They're not fixed, but they are manual, and they do have a good amount of adjustment. So step inside. You have that Alcantara wrapped flat bottom steering wheel with the Cobra on it. And it's a manual car, so foot on the clutch, car neutral, push button start down here. Shelby GT350 logo already appeared on the screen. Here we go. Close it up. Get that AC on. And just like every other American car, the AC is ice cold, which is very lovely on a day like today, where according to the car, it's only 93 degrees, but I assure you it is much hotter than that. All right, so we're sitting here in the 2019 Shelby GT350R. This is actually my first time driving a new GT350, period. The last time I drove a GT350, it was in 1967, and that was a couple of years ago. And it's safe to say that the GT350 has come a long way. But all jokes aside, this is really one of the nicest interiors I've ever sat in. Not only does it seem track focused, but it also is luxurious at the same time. Obviously, things like these blank buttons here, that's for the heated and cooled seats that you would find in the Mustang 5.0 or EcoBoost. The GT350 base doesn't have that either, but the R especially doesn't. But moving up here to this screen, it is the latest version of the Ford Infotainment system, and it is a $3,000 option, or about $2,900. And the funny thing about the GT350 is this is included, and there's a tech pack and a track pack and everything, but the GT350R actually doesn't come with AC, radio, speakers, or anything like that from factory. And you basically pay more for the GT350R off the bat than the 350, and then you have to pay another $3 grand or so to get the infotainment, air conditioning, and stuff back. It is kind of funny. A lot of car companies do that. It's not the first time a car company's done this. Porsche does it, Ferrari does it. They'll charge you for carpets, AC, and stuff like that. Obviously, being in South Florida in the dead of the summer, of course you have to have AC. Go into the back seat, which or lack thereof, compared to the GT350, there is no back seat for the R. Continuing over to the seat, like I said, for 2019, the R logo was moved down to the backrest as opposed to the headrest. You have this kind of like faux carbon design here. It is all Alcantara fabric, kind of suede, and they're heavily bolstered Recaro seats. They do slide manually, and they can go up, and the backrest can go back. No carbon fiber roof as far as I know. The headliner is just kind of like this net fabric material. It's really just a lot of the same Mustang controls in here. The gauges are pretty much the same. These switches here for hazard lights, traction control off, launch control. The dual mode exhaust is kind of like a toggle switch on a fighter jet. Pretty cool. So it says exhaust mode, normal, and then sport. You can hear it open up, put it back into normal. And I'm not sure about the regular GT350, but for the R, you have a flat bottom Alcantara and leather wrap steering wheel with a red racing line up here. And over on the right side here, you have the controls for your steering adjustments and suspension adjustments. So we have the steering here. So for the steering wheel I had in sport, there's also comfort and normal. And suspension, you have normal and sport. That's the damper mode. And I'll get more into it when I take the Shelby out on the road, but just on the short drive over here, I'm about 5 minutes from my house, and I came down this kind of a twisty road behind me here. I can safely say that this is one of the most amazing and rewarding and precision driver's vehicles I've ever driven. Everything from the steering feel. It's a car you really have to give all your attention to when you're driving it. The steering, the front wheels want to follow every little rut in the road with the steering in the sport mode. It's heavy and light at the same time. It's hard to, I know that's weird and hard to explain, but it's something you really just have to experience for yourself. The damper modes in sport, I compared it to the likes of the Viper ACR. Maybe not in the ACR's stiffest suspension setting, but more towards the top. It really is just a brutal car. And brutal doesn't exactly translate to unforgiving. It's not a car that's going to step out on you in the middle of a corner. It has these Sport Cup 2s on it right now. They're not brand new tires. They have a good amount of wear on them, however there's still plenty of grip. You always know what the back end is doing. It's very confidence inspiring. This 6-speed manual transmission is amazing. There's not much more I can say about it. It's just a true driver's car. Ford really knew what they were doing when they tuned the steering and suspension and aero components, which over the regular GT350 is definitely worth the extra money. And I've driven other new Mustangs. I've driven new 5.0s and all that, and if I was blindfolded and in the passenger seat of this car, just going from the sound of the engine, the exhaust, and just the way that it feels going around corners, I would not believe that I'm in a Mustang. It's honestly hard to believe that when you're in this car, if it weren't for the Shelby badge or anything that said Ford on it, which really isn't anything in here, it just says Shelby everywhere, but nonetheless, it's very hard to believe that you're driving a Mustang. And that's why people don't call these Mustangs. It's not the Ford Mustang Shelby GT350R. Even though that might be the official name, it's really just Shelby GT350 or Shelby GT350R. And this car really speaks for itself, and I honestly can't wait to get it out on the road and really see what it's like to drive. So continuing in the interior here, Zach has opted for the carbon fiber interior package, which adds this nice gloss carbon fiber all throughout. across the dashboard. You have the gauges for the oil pressure here and oil temp. Of course, you have the numbered GT350 plaque. We have the infotainment here. You got things like audio, Bang & Olufsen system, climate, your phone connectivity, navigation, your map and everything. You can scroll. It's touchscreen, pinch to zoom and everything. It's the Ford Sync system, Sync 3. You have your apps, settings and all that. You have ambient lighting in here, I think. Let me see. If we go to vehicle, camera settings, so you can activate your guidance lines. And actually, another feature that comes with the technology package is the blind spot monitoring system in the mirror there. Continuing back through here, you have your AC controls, and once again you have the blanks for the heated and cooled seats. Being that these are the Recaro racing seats, you do not have that. Also in the regular GT350. So you're going back, general. Actually, doesn't look like, just like the regular 5.0 Mustang, it doesn't look like this has the ambient lighting, which gives you all the cool colors and everything, like in the door cards and the dashboard. I don't know if that's because of weight savings or just they decided not to include it in the Shelby. It's more of a race car than a luxury or a show car. But continuing over to the gauge cluster with the display in the middle, you have your digital speedometer, tire pressure, gauge detail, and this is where it gets really interesting. So I don't know any other car that tells you your axle oil temperature, air fuel ratio, inlet air temperature, cylinder head temp, voltage. I mean, engine oil pressure and trans temp is one thing, but all these other parameters, it's pretty cool, and it's real-time data. If we go distance empty, so it's not the biggest gas tank, and being that this is a very thirsty vehicle, the tank is just about over 3/4 and the range is only 157 miles, but that's to be expected. The car has just under 10,000 miles on it. Let's see what else we got. Gauge mode, trip, fuel, track apps. You have your accelerometer, so G-force. This car has already pulled 1.5 lateral G's to the left, and to the right 1.10. Acceleration, it has pulled 0.8 G's, and braking 1.5. That is some pretty healthy numbers. You have your brake performance, line lock, which we're not going to be using today. There's not that much tire left. Let's see what else we got. Lap timer, launch control, which we are going to use in a little bit. Exhaust mode, normal, sport. This is a very nice sounding car, and it revs to 8250 RPM. Performance shift indicator, so you have shift tone, shift light mode, and you can't really see it right now. We'll get it more when we do the driving portion of the video, but there's a little indicator up here. It's kind of like a shift light, where in other Ford models it would be kind of a forward collision warning light or a monitor, but here it's actually shift light intensity, do 100%. Not really sure what that does, so we go back, status screen. This kind of tells you what all your modes are in. So advanced track or traction controls on, launch controls off, suspension is in sport mode, steering is normal, exhaust normal, driver assist. There's auto engine off, blind spot, cross traffic alert, hill start assist, all great features to have. Of course, you got your settings, vehicle, oil life reset, windows, remote open. You can open them with a remote. Oh, here we go, lighting, auto lamp delay. So nothing with ambient lighting. Courtesy wipe, that's pretty funny. Back to gauge mode, back to the digital speedometer. And of course you have the manual e-brake here. I like all the red stitching here, the leather and the transmission tunnel. Decent sized center console. Glove box is nothing crazy, but you have 2 large cup holders, but no back seat. It does really make some nice storage. Really not much to it when it comes to the interior of the GT350R. Everything you need in a driver's car is here. Steering wheel, shifter, clutch, all your buttons to adjust the suspension, steering settings, exhaust mode, launch control. There really are more performance features in here than actual creature comforts. And if you didn't have the AC option in this car, the tech pack, this would just be one big blank. None of these buttons would be here. There would probably be nothing here, to be honest. You'd have these buttons down here, of course. You have the start button. You do have like USB, cigarette lighter, some decent storage in the doors, And the Bang & Olufsen system does sound great. I don't want to get the video copyrighted, so I'm not going to play any music. You have stuff like your dome lights, really nothing fancy, but this car is not about being fancy. It's about just having fun and being driven, and it does like to be driven hard. It loves to live up past 6,000 RPM. That's kind of like the sweet spot, 6,000 to 8,000 RPM. So we'll go back to climate here. Got all your basic climate controls and stuff like that. The circulator, there's your audio. Well, that should do it for the interior of the GT350R, and now we're going to take it out on the road and see what it's like to drive. So right now we're in the 2019 Shelby GT350R. Actually going to put the exhaust into normal mode so you guys can actually hear me. And right now we're going to put the suspension into sport and the steering into sport. The steering feels really dramatically different in each mode. However, I just like sport because it's just tight enough and just loose enough. That makes sense. It's not too rough. It does give you a lot of controllability over the car. And like I was saying before, I've never driven a Mustang or a Ford in general with this level of adjustability with the suspension and the steering. And I can safely say that the steering feels more like that of a McLaren steering or a 911 GT3 RS. I'll say it again, I can't believe that I'm driving a Mustang or an American car for that matter. When I drove the Hellcat Red Eye a couple months back, just shift up into fifth. When I drove the Hellcat Red Eye a couple months back, that was a very fun car, and it just felt like a big boat. But this thing is just glued to the road. It's on the Pilot Sport Cup 2s, the Michelins, and you really have to pay attention when you're driving this car. While the shifting is very easy, there is no rev matching, so you do have to know what you're doing. With the steering, the front wheels like to follow every little rut in the road. So if you're not careful, it could drive you into the curb or a tree or something. This car really isn't as happy as, let's say, a basic Mustang 5.0. The rear end is very tidy. Ford's engineers knew what they were doing when they designed this car, and really they did an outstanding job. So right now I'm going to shut up for a second and let you guys hear that amazing 5.2 liter flat plane crank V8. So open up the exhaust. Here we go. Only going up to about 445, 5,000 RPM, and it just wants more and more and more. See if we can get somewhere real quick where I can stretch its legs out. You get lots of pops and crackles with the exhaust in sport mode if you modulate the throttle enough, get it to dump fuel. just intoxicating. The noise that engine makes. I mean, a lot of performance cars make most of their noise through the exhaust, and I know it's really one and the same, but the sound that engine makes is really just intoxicating. And you guys can't see it from this angle, but the little shift light you get kind of reflecting up at you in the windshield is really, really cool. And it definitely helps, especially when you're in the middle of a pull and you're about 250 RPM away from red line, which is 8250, and you rarely have to get that high. I really like shifting around 75, 76. I just took it to about 8,000 to show you guys what it sounds like. But you do feel the power band kind of taper off a little bit and start to go down to about 79 to 8100 RPM. But this car really loves to live up in the high RPM, and I honestly can't get enough of it. And once again, I can't thank my friend Zach enough for switching cars with me for the day, allowing me to experience this car. But right now I'm going to continue to enjoy driving this car, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. And actually, one more thing I wanted to show you guys. So I've got the GT350R in my garage right now. Something you can really only see at night or in dark areas. If you open the door, you actually have a Shelby, or a Cobra, the snake that comes out of the door. It's a pretty cool touch.